Hello everyone, welcome back to fineLEARN. I am Kostuvi and this is part 2 of chapter 9 from my history textbook by R.S.SHARMA. In this part we will discuss Buddhism, and in the part 1 we discussed about Jainism. Right? Now before talking about Buddhism, I'd just like to tell you that the causes of origin or the background in which these religions like Jainism and Buddhism have developed, that is the same. And we have discussed that in detail in our previous lecture while talking about Jainism. So here we will not go into much detail about that. Right? And please go through the slides very carefully so that you do not miss out any important points. If you can recollect, I'll just point out a few points here, okay? If you can recollect, while discussing Jainism, we talked about the later Vedic period and the social structure that was there. The social structure, it was a Varna divided social structure, right? And how the different Varnas, that is the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, they started protesting against this Varna system. Right? They started protesting against the priestly class, that is the Brahmanas, who actually occupied the higher status of the society. Right? And during that period, that is around 6th century BC, we find the emergence of new religious ideas, several new religious ideas and different religious philosophies. Okay? And out of these, Jainism and Buddhism, they emerged out as two well-organized and popular religions. That is why we discuss about Jainism and Buddhism in detail. Okay. Now talking about Gautama Buddha, who is the founder of Buddhism, he was named Siddhartha by his parents. He was born in 563 BC in Kapilavastu, which is in the foothills of Nepal. His father was the head of a Kshatriya clan, the Sakya Kshatriya clan, and his mother was the princess of a Kosalan dynasty. Now like Mahavira, Gautama Buddha was also he belonged to a noble family, right? Now, although he belonged to a noble family, Buddha, from his childhood, he had a meditative bent of mind. Okay, like family life did not interest him much. He was deeply affected by the misery of mankind. And it is said that the sight of an old man, the sight of a diseased man, the sight of a dying man and an ascetic, these deeply affected him, right? And he wanted to find a solution for these human miseries. Okay, so he left home at the age of 29 to look for solutions to such miseries of mankind. And at the age of 35, Gautama Buddha, he attained supreme knowledge under a peepal tree or a bodhi tree at Bodh Gaya, which is in Bihar. And from then onwards, he came to be called the Buddha or the Enlightened, right? He held his first sermon at Sarnath, okay? And from then onwards, he kept on wandering, kept on preaching, meditating and spreading his ideas. He passed away at the age of 80 in 483 BC at Kushinagar, which is in eastern UP. Now talking about the doctrines of Buddhism, the Buddha was actually a very practical reformer. He was not involved in controversies regarding the soul or the Atma and the Brahma. Okay, he rather, he addressed the problems of the time, that is the realities of life, or he addressed the worldly problems. Okay, and he said that there are 4 truths in the world which are referred to as the 4 noble truths. They are that the world is full of sorrows and that people suffer on account of desires. Okay, people suffer on account of desires, and he says that these sufferings or these sorrows can be actually eliminated. And in order to eliminate that, one has to follow the right path. Okay, one has to follow the right path, and there is a path to end this misery. And he recommends that if one follows the eightfold path, okay, an eightfold path, people, they can eliminate the miseries of their lives. And that eightfold path is called as, or is termed as the Ashtangi Kamarga. Okay, Ashtangi Kamarga. And Buddha says that on following this Ashtangi Kamarga or the eightfold path, people would attain nirvana. Okay, what is nirvana? Nirvana, that is salvation. It means freedom from the cycle of birth and death, and according to Buddha, this should be the ultimate goal or ultimate aim of a person. That is, to be free from the cycle of birth and death, right? Now, what is Ashtangi Kamarga? We talked about the eightfold path, right? Ashtangi Kamarga. This path is about following right observation, right determination, right speech, that is to be truthful, right action or right conduct, right livelihood, that is to live by honest means, right exercise, right memory and right meditation. And once we follow this Ashtangi Kamarga, one can attain nirvana, right? Buddha or Buddhism prescribes the middle path, okay, middle path, that is to avoid excess of anything, that is either excess of luxury or excess of austerity. One should follow the middle path, which is also called as the Madhya Marga. Okay, Madhya Marga, that is the middle path. Okay. Buddha also laid down a code of conduct for his followers. Okay, and this was actually on the same lines with Mahavira, right? If you can recollect, here Buddha says that one should not covet the properties of others, right? One should not commit violence, that is non-violence, not to use intoxicants, not to speak a lie, and not to indulge in any corrupt practices. Okay, so this is the code of conduct that Buddha prescribed for his followers, right? Now, after discussing about the doctrines of Buddhism, we now shall discuss the features of Buddhism or the reasons or causes of its spread. Okay, the first one is Buddhism did not recognize the existence of God and soul, that is the Atma. Okay, whereas when we talked of Jainism, we know that Jainism, they recognize the existence of God, but they placed the gods below or inferior to the Jina, whom they considered as the conqueror, right? They talked about Jina or the conqueror. Whereas Buddhism did not recognize the existence of God. Now, Buddhism was not enmeshed in any philosophical discussions, because as we discussed, Buddha himself was a practical reformer, okay, and he addressed the worldly problems, okay, and this actually appealed to the common people. This appealed to the common people. Buddhism also won the support of the lower classes because it attacked the Varna system, right? Buddhism, both Buddhism and Jainism, they attacked the system. Now, Buddhism was liberal and democratic, and caste was not a consideration for joining the Buddhist assemblies, okay? And the people of the non-Vedic areas, they very easily or very readily responded to Buddhism. For example, the people of Magadha, right? The people of Magadha, what? They were actually placed away from the Aryavata. Okay, Aryavata. What is Aryavata? Aryavata is the land of the Aryans. The land of the Aryans. Now, the areas which were away or which were far from Aryavata, okay, which were not under Aryavata, they were looked down upon by the Brahmins. Okay, so this actually, therefore, the people of the non-Vedic areas, they readily responded to Buddhism. Then, personality of the Buddha is itself a feature which attracted people, okay, and helped in the spread of Buddhism. The personality of Buddha, when we talked about his personality, he was a very calm and composed person. He did not indulge in arguments, and he could easily defeat his opponents in debates. Like the supporters of other sects, when they argued with Buddha, he could easily defeat them through his wit and wisdom and his presence of mind, right? He actually fought with goodness. Okay, they say that he fought with goodness. Buddha fought with goodness. Okay, Buddha fought with goodness. So his personality also attracted a lot of followers. Then Buddhism, they preached in Pali language, and Pali at that time was the language of the common people. Okay, if you can recollect, the Jainas, they preached in Prakrit, right? Jainas, they preached in Prakrit, whereas Buddhism preached in Pali. Both were the languages of the common people. Therefore, these appealed to these people. Again, Buddhism, they organize sanghas. What are sanghas? Sanghas are religious assemblies. Okay, a religious order. These are assemblies where people, irrespective of their caste and gender, could join. Okay, and there are three main elements in Buddhism. There are three main elements in Buddhism. When we talk about Buddhism, we talk about three main elements. First is the Buddha himself, then the sangha or the religious assemblies, and the Dhamma, that is the doctrines or the teachings of Buddhism. Okay, so these are the three elements of Buddhism. When we talk about the spread of Buddhism, we have to mention about the Maurya king Ashoka, who himself adopted Buddhism and also helped it spread in Central Asia, in West Asia and Sri Lanka, and thereby Buddhism was transformed into a world religion, right? Buddhism was transformed into a world religion, and even later when Buddhism actually disappeared from the land of its origin, that is India, but still it continued to be preached in these areas, okay? To be preached in these areas even now. Now let us discuss about the decline of Buddhism or the causes of its decline, right? Buddhism actually later, what happened is it underwent a metamorphosis. Okay, it underwent a metamorphosis and it succumbed to the rituals of Brahmanism, which originally Buddhism denounced, right? Buddhism initially denounced the Brahmanic rituals but later succumbed itself to the same rituals, right? On the other hand, the Brahmanas, in order to take the challenge of Buddhism, they reformed their religion, okay? In the challenge to Buddhism, they reformed their religion and they assured preservation of cattle and admission of women and Sudras to heaven, okay? So this happened actually, and again the conditions with the monks, they became even worse. Okay, what happened is the Buddhist monks were later cut off from the people's life. They gave up Pali, they took up Sanskrit, they started practicing idol worship, they started receiving gifts and offerings, and they also started collecting revenues, right? So these are the changes that were going on in the monks, and the monasteries, they later came to become the centers of corrupt practices, okay? They became centers of corrupt practices, right? Enormous wealth in the monasteries now, because they started receiving offerings, they started collecting revenues. Now they have enormous wealth, okay? Enormous wealth, and also they have women living there. So these conditions together led to the degeneration of the monasteries, right? And slowly there was a new form of Buddhism that started to develop, which was called Vajrayana, right? Vajrayana. The rich monasteries, which were now very much wealthy, they were now the eyes or the targets of the Turkish invaders. Several Turkish invaders, they actually attacked the monasteries, killed several monks, and they looted these monasteries, right? And by the end of the 12th century AD, Buddhism actually practically disappeared from India, okay? Because of all these reasons, it slowly started declining, slowly started, disappearing, and finally, practically, it became extinct from the place of its origin. Now, talking about the importance of influence of Buddhism, Buddhism tried to mitigate the evils of material life, right? To mitigate the evils of material life. And Buddhism suggested a kind of primitive tribal communism. Okay, they suggested a kind of communism, that is, they were against the accumulation of coins, accumulation of wealth, or accumulation of any kind of property. A code of conduct and restriction were also prescribed for the monks. But in some ways, okay, the Buddhist monks, they resemble the Brahmanas. How like the Brahmanas, the Buddhist monks also did not participate in production, right? They lived on the gifts and offerings from the society, and somehow they also supported the social order. That is, although the interpretation of the Varna or the basis of Varna is different for them, but they somehow supported this order, and thereby these points make them similar to the Brahmanas, right? The main objective of Buddhism is to secure nirvana or the salvation of the individual, that is, the freedom from the cycle of birth and death. Both women and Sudras were now freed from the mark of inferiority which was there in that later Vedic social structure, right? Emphasis was now laid on non-violence, okay? Buddhism preaches non-violence, which now helps in boosting the cattle wealth. Buddhism also promotes judgment and rationalism, right? Buddha promoted judgment, to judge things and to be rational and look into the worldly things. Now, if we talk about the contribution of Buddhism to art and literature, Buddhist literature actually enriched the Pali language, okay, and the early Pali language is divided into three parts. First is about the teachings of Buddha, second is the rules for the members of the Buddhist Sanghas, and the third is the philosophical exposition of the Dhamma, or the Buddhist doctrines or the principles, right? Buddhist monasteries also developed as great centers of learning. For example, we can talk about the Nalanda and Vikramshila in Bihar and Vallavi in Gujarat, which gradually emerged out as great learning centers, right? The first human statues that were worshipped in India were also those of Buddha. And the panels at Gaya, which is in Bihar, Sanchi and Bharhut in MP, these are excellent pieces of art, right? We also have the emergence of the Gandhara art. Gandhara art is an Indo-Greek art, okay? Indo-Greek art, where both Greek and Indian sculptors work together to form, to craft out beautiful arts, okay? And on the right, you can see an example of Gandhara art, right? Then we also have the development of cave architecture, because for the residences of monks, actually rooms were carved out of stones, okay? And there began cave architecture, right? For example, we have the Barabar Hills in Gaya, which is a good example of cave architecture, right? So these are the different fields in which Buddhism has contributed. So although Buddhism later it disappeared from India, but it is now still preached in different areas like Central Asia, like Burma, okay, Sri Lanka, then in different parts of China and Japan, Buddhism is still being preached. Okay, so there were actually different contributions and different influences of Buddhism. Now, after we have discussed about Jainism and Buddhism, I would like to tell you here is that whatever we have covered in these 2 lectures, this is from the NCERT by R.S.SHARMA, right? Now, I would just want to inform you that apart from NCERT, we have different other sources from which we have certain other informations regarding Jainism and Buddhism, and we can also expect questions from those sources, right? Those topics. Like if we talk about the different councils, the Jaina councils or the Buddhist councils, then if we can talk about the different sects of Buddhism, or we can talk about the different religious texts of Buddhism. So these actually together can be compiled into a separate lecture. Okay, do let me know if you want me to come up with such a lecture, right? Hope this video was useful for you. Do like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. Keep learning. Take care. Thank you.